You know, I'm old enough to remember when $500 for a hat was a lot of money. And you know what? Look, somebody pointed out. Oh, hold on. I'm old enough to remember when $500 for a hat was a lot of. Let me mute that so I don't hear it. Listen, and somebody pointed out, it's not just an autographed hat. It's not just an autographed hat. It's an investment in the future of the United States of America. When you support Mark Kaye for Congress by going to markkforcongress.com and getting your hat, you're not just getting a cool hat. By the way, the next three, we're down to three. The next three $500 donations will get an autographed Mark Kaye for Congress hat. But it's also an investment in America's future. It's an investment in Donald Trump's entire agenda. It's an investment in term limits for all Congress and senators. It's an investment in putting America first. It's an investment in border security. It's an investment against fighting against the ridiculous impeachment. It's an investment into protecting America from the lunacy of the Democrat Party. It's an investment from beating back the kinds of things we're seeing in New York City, where an Islamic fundamentalist socialist has just been, I mean, not elected mayor, but pretty darn close to becoming the next mayor of New York City. And it is the continued degradation of what our founding fathers put in place when they wrote the Constitution, when they fought and gave their lives and gave their souls and gave their money and gave their all to create this amazing country so that we could live freely, where freedom and independence and capitalism and glory and all these other things live and reign supreme. And we are not going to let it be taken down from within. We are not going to let it be destroyed from within by crazy, lunatic leftists, Democrat Party operatives who are trying to usurp the authority of the Constitution given to the President of the United States, and who are also trying to destroy this country from within by taking over its elections and its electoral process, by going in to the Congress and just, I mean, you want acting ridiculous, trying to claim powers they don't have, impeaching the president for no good reason whatsoever. It is not just a $500 autographed first edition Mark Kaye for Congress hat. It is an investment in protecting America from the evils, both foreign and domestic. And don't even get me started on the rhinos, because that's really what I'm personally. Look, I'll talk to you a little bit about term limits today, because James Woods, the actor, he retweeted an old tweet about term limits, and it was really kind of actually right up. Oh, let me turn off my email. It was really right up my alley, too, because it was an old proposal of Ron DeSantis when he was a representative from Florida's 6th District, and Ted Cruz, who is still a senator from Texas, proposing term limits to Donald Trump in his first term. And then the impeachment started. And then after the impeachment started, Donald Trump just was fighting tooth and nail. He got distracted. He couldn't focus on legislation. Ron DeSantis eventually left to go run for governor. Ted Cruz is still Ted Cruz. I don't know what that guy's doing. And the legislation went by the wayside, but it's very important. And I tweeted at James Woods today on X, and I said, look, dude, we got to get these term limits done. I am running for Congress. That is one of my platforms. That's probably my main platform. Somebody asked me the other day, and she was right. I was giving a speech, because that's what I do now. I just give speeches. I talk all day long on the internet, and then I get in my car and I drive to some meeting and I talk there. And I answer questions. And somebody said, what's something you would like to accomplish in your term as a congressman when you win? And I said, well, when I win, one of the things I really want to do, one of the things I'm dead set on is term limits. And I know it's an impossible task. I know it's one of the most difficult things to do, is to get people who've decided to go to Congress so that they could live out the rest of their lives in the lap of luxury, only working 86 days a year and getting insider information so they could trade their money and make millions. I know it's very difficult to talk those people into limiting their time there in Congress, but that is something I'd like to do. And the woman said, no. And I was shocked, because I thought, I was preaching to the choir. I thought term limits was red meat, to the crowd. She goes, no. And I go, what? She goes, don't say it's an impossible task. Don't you have to go in there? It's a great idea, and it's something that needs to get done. And don't ever say it's an impossible task. Ow. I forget sometimes how hard wood really is when you pound it with your fist. That sounded, you know what? Never mind. But where was I? Oh yeah, term limit. She goes, it's not an impossible task. Go in there with and I said, you're gosh darn right, lady. I'm going to do that. So I'm going into Congress and I'm going to fight for term limits. And lo and behold, just 2 days after I said that, just a couple of days after that woman pressed me on term limits and said, make that the crux of your campaign, make that an important issue. Then immediately, like just 2 days after that, there I was on X and I saw James Woods and he was tweeting about term limits. And I thought to myself, this is a sign from God. Amen. Hallelujah. So now I've got to win. Now I've got to go to Congress, and then I've got to get the term limits done. And here's the fun fact. As a term limit candidate, I have to limit myself to a certain number of terms, which I'm happy to do because unlike most Congress people, I'm not looking for a retirement plan. I'm not looking for a new career. I'm looking to serve my country for a little bit of time and then go back to my regular life. But what a lot of these Congress people are doing is they're using it, like I said, as a retirement plan. You just have to look no further than my own Congressman, John Rutherford. But anyway, so what happened was what was I saying? Oh, yeah. So back to what I was saying. If you would like one of these hats, know that you're not just getting an autographed first edition Mark Kaye for Congress ball cap. You are also investing in term limits, and you are saving the rest of the United States of America from people who are looking to just take advantage of the system so that they don't actually have to work in the private sector for the rest of their lives. MarkKay4Congress.com. Any amount is sufficient. Any amount you can give. I hate to sound like Bernie Sanders, but like $1, $5, $25, whatever you can give. Whatever you can give for the cause. We need it to happen. We need to make this a reality. We need to win. And that's going to unfortunately take a lot more money than we have right now. And that's why we're auctioning off the hats. The autographed ones are $500. We're going to try to get some new ones in that we'll make you a deal on. But the next 3 $500 donations will get an autographed Mark Kaye ball cap, first edition. I'm very, very excited about those. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, subscribe to the podcast. If you're listening on iTunes and Google, we now have 2 podcasts. This one and our 47 Daily podcast, which is every single day available at the47daily.com. We have now 2 podcasts in the top 200 podcasts. So that's very exciting. And that's something that I love. Oh, and we will get back to Tuesdays reviews days. Here's the issue. We have been getting a lot of reviews. People listen. You guys are listening to the podcast. You're downloading the podcast. And I love that about you. And that's the important thing. I'm giving you the information, the truth. I'm trying to tell you what's what. I'm trying to tell you who's attacking you, how they're attacking you, and how you can fight back. I'm trying to do it in an entertaining manner. I'm trying to bring you other voices from all over the political spectrum. We're going to get it back into more interviews because they're fun and exciting and necessary and like I said, enlightening and all of those things. But if you can leave me a review, that'd be swell. And then I can read some of your reviews. I can give you props back on Tuesday's Reviews Days. So today's Thursday. If you're listening to this podcast and it is any other day but Tuesday, or really any day, because some people listen on Friday, some people listen on the weekends, some people catch up. I don't know what you're doing. I don't know when you're listening, but I know you're listening. And take a minute, write a review, put it up there, and we'll read some of those on Tuesday's Reviews Days because that's very exciting. So yesterday, speaking of interviews, I did not know that Brigitte Gabriel. I knew a lot about her. First of all, I know she's amazing. I know that she's hilarious. I know that she's full of energy. I know she's a patriot. I know she's America first. I know she's MAGA. I know she loves this country. I know that she is a national security expert and analyst. I know that she's an accomplished best-selling author. I know she's a TV personality. I did not know, though, that Brigitte Gabriel was also a psychic. Brigitte Gabriel is psychic. Yesterday, listen to what she said on this very show.
I cannot wait to watch the footage, Mark, from the NATO summit right now.
Yeah.
Trump is on his way. He's going to be treated like a hero. I mean, you can just imagine him pushing everybody aside, standing in for the photo op, red dead smack center.
Okay. And then just moments later, President Donald Trump was at NATO and there was a photo op. And this was him doing exactly what Brigitte Gabriel predicted. There's everybody on the stage. Donald Trump, one of the last ones out. And he's right there, front and center, right next. It's like Donald Trump, the NATO chair, Mark, what's his name, Ritter, and then all the other clowns. and Canadian Prime Minister, what's his name? The new one, Mark Carney, is way on the end because nobody cares about him. It's really fun. There's Donald Trump, bright red tie, standing right in front. just like Brigitte predicted. I mean, again, it's not that hard. It wasn't that hard to predict. I get it, but still, I always love it when we figure out that one of our guests has psychic abilities and is so in tune with what's going on in the world that she can predict exactly what's going on. Incidentally, speaking of predicting what's going on, it was not at all difficult to predict that President Donald Trump and his massive success in Iran, his incredibly executed and professionally designed and performed attack on the 3 Iranian nuclear targets over the weekend. No shock, no surprise that they should have been met with disdain and disparagement by CNN, MSNBC, and the New York Times.
CNN is scum. MSDNC is scum. The New York Times is scum.
Those are 3 of my. I have those on the button bar right now. Pardon me, by now, so I can play them whenever I want.
CNN is scum.
Isn't that great? so when we start doing, and here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to start doing more stories from these 3 outlets, and then I'm going to play those clips.
MSDNC is scum.
By the way, and I always say MSNBC, and I always forget that it's MSDNC.
The New York Times is scum.
Yeah, President Donald Trump not happy with any of those outlets because of what they were reporting regarding his attack, his very successful attack, where he quote unquote obliterated the nuclear capacity and the nuclear refining ability and the nuclear weapons factories in Iran. They're nowhere near able to refine or enrich uranium and produce a nuclear warhead and create a weapon to attack Israel and the United States of America and whoever else those crazy SOBs think should be attacked and whoever else they chant death to. I know they chant death to Israel. That's their OG. And then they also like Death to America is pop. Those are like their two greatest hits. If you look at the Iranian pop charts, it's Death to Israel, Death to America. Although Death to America may have taken the top spot. I'm gonna have to go check those later. But now, and Donald Trump's like, look, they're done. There's no way. It's total obliteration.
Too many people that are going to be down there. Pete, do you have something to say about that?
Well, Mr. President, when you talk to the people who built the bombs, understand what those bombs can do, and deliver those bombs, they landed precisely where they were supposed to. So it was a flawless mission.
Political motive. CNN is scum.
CNN is scum.
And they are politically motivated to try to weaken President Donald Trump. So what are they going to do? They're going to go to their friends at the Pentagon, which I don't know why they have friends at the Pentagon, but Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth is sitting there saying, BT dubs, this is a top secret report that CNN got, and CNN is leaking and reporting on top secret information. And last time I checked, that was a crime. Do you not recall just months ago when Donald Trump had quote unquote top secret information at Mar-a-Lago, the FBI broke into his house, raided his wife's underwear drawer, busted into his safe, searched for documents they A, knew he had, B, knew what they were, and C, knew that they were unclassified because Donald Trump was the president of the United States. He said, I unclassified all of those. None of those are top secret documents anymore. Get out of my house. But Donald Trump was targeted by the DOJ and the FBI under Joe Biden, and the DOJ and the FBI under Joe Biden went into his house, ransacked it, and tried to throw him in prison. And here's CNN. They got a hold of a top secret military report from the Pentagon, and what do? They blast it. They blast it on their website and on their news broadcast for dozens of people to see. Maybe dozens, a dozen people to see. That's probably more like it. Anyway, and Pete Hegseth is saying this is a low confidence report. This was a preliminary report, and these people are turning it into something that it's not. We know the devastation. We know what happened there. We know what happens when you drop these kinds of bombs. In fact, Marco Rubio was also there, and Marco Rubio is a very emotional guy. I like Marco Rubio a lot. He's a great Secretary of State. He does an amazing job as Secretary of State. I give him an A. I give him an A. Like no one's asked me, Mark Kaye, would you please grade the members of Donald Trump's cabinet so far? No one's asked me that, but I would give Marco Rubio an A for sure. I'd give Pete Hegseth the solid, maybe like an A minus. Maybe because that whole signal chat thing, although I know they're blaming Mike Waltz for that, which, has anyone talked to Mike Waltz? Is he the one leaking that report from the Pentagon? I don't know. Yeah, probably not. Probably not. I'm just kidding. We're good friends. Anyway, but back to Marco Rubio. He's not having it. He does not like what's going on here. He does not like CNN. He does not like MSNBC. He does not like anyone disparaging the president of the United States, the brave men and women of the armed forces who executed this incredible attack. And he's gonna let you know. By the way, he's right about it being illegal. He's like, look, these people are professionals. This is what they do. They stab the president in the back. They weaken the United States of America. They're probably committing some kind of treason. In fact, Steve Witkoff, I have a clip I'll play for you in a minute. He said this is probably treasonous. He told Laura Ingraham on Fox News, whoever's leaking this stuff to CNN, it's probably treason. And Pam Bondi, I give her like a C+. Okay. Marco Rubio gets an A. Pete Hegseth gets like an A-. I'm giving Pam Bondi like a C+. She's got a little bit of, she needs to do some like extra credit work or something like that. But she could go after these leakers. She could go after these people. We need a strong Department of Justice, an FBI. We need internal investigations at the Department of Defense. Or, this is kind of funny, the Department of War, as President Donald Trump would like to call it. The Department of Defense used to be called the Department of War. And then they changed it. Donald Trump says because people were woke and they thought war was too bad. They thought war was a bad thing. You don't want to be the Secretary of War. I don't know. Secretary of War sounds pretty cool to me, but I grew up playing with G.I. Joe. And when you grow up playing with G.I. Joe, Secretary of War, that makes way more sense than Secretary of Defense. But Donald Trump said, you know what, maybe Pete Hegseth is doing such a good job. Maybe it's time to bring back the Department of War. The Secretary of War, even for a little while.
I have, as you know, Marco Rubio with me and Pete Hegseth, Secretary of State and Secretary of War. Should we say Secretary? You know, it used to be called Secretary of War. Maybe for a couple of weeks we'll call it that because we feel like warriors. It used to be called Secretary of War. In fact, if you look at the old building next to the White House, you can see where it used to be Secretary of War. Then we became politically correct. And they called it Secretary of Defense. I don't know. Maybe we'll have to start thinking about changing it, but we feel that way.
Yeah, it was the War Office, I think, or it was the Department of War. Then it was the Office of War. Then it was the Secretary of War, and then it became the Secretary of Defense. And that's where everyone knows basically. Look, all the armed forces are under the purview of the Secretary of Defense. So basically, it's basically. Secretary of Peace just sounds stupid. So thankfully they're not doing that. But Donald Trump is like, look, we got the dream team up here. We got Marco Rubio with me. We got Pete Hegseth with me. These are the guys who were able to accommodate this procedure that denuclearized Iran and brought peace to the region. These are the guys who, before the attack, there were no leaks coming from the Pentagon. These are the guys who planned a mission with misdirection that was executed perfectly, complete obliteration of the target, and now the CNNs and the MSDNCs and the New York Times of the world, they're trying to find anything they can to blame Donald Trump for. So they're not saying the attack was wrong anymore. They're not saying Donald Trump didn't have the authority anymore, because he totally did. They're not saying Donald Trump shouldn't have done this. They're saying Donald Trump didn't do enough. Did you ever think that the fake news media would be reduced to having to say that Donald Trump didn't do enough when he bombed Iran? That's the only narrative they can come up with. And of course, they're lying about that too. Incidentally, the chief of NATO, his name is Mark Ritter. Is that right? Is it Ritter? There's so many Marks. Hold on. NATO chairman. I should know these things before I go. Who is the name? Mark Rutter. Mark Rutter? Ritter? I don't know. It's Mark R. It's one of those foreign names. And he loves Donald Trump, or he's petrified of Donald Trump. It's a thin line. Could be both. Probably it's both. He's so scared of Donald Trump because Donald Trump is blowing up nuclear facilities. Donald Trump is threatening everybody. Donald Trump put tariffs on the entire gosh darn world. And he said to NATO, by the way, I'm coming to that meeting, and the first thing you're going to vote on is that everybody pays 5% of their GDP toward defense of NATO, because we're sick and tired of paying 99% of the bill. And Mark Rutter is all like, yes, Donald Trump is changing NATO.
For too long, one ally, the United States, carried too much of the burden of that commitment. And that changes today. President Trump, dear Donald, you made this change possible. Your leadership on this has already produced $1 trillion in extra spending from European allies since 2016. And the decisions today will produce trillions more for our common defense to make us stronger and fairer by equalizing spending between America and America's allies.
As you look at that, Giorgia Maloney's like, oh God, I don't want to spend all the euros on defense when Donald Trump has all the money. That's what she's thinking. And the guy from Greece is like sitting there. He looks like the guy from Greece looks like Mr. Bean. Hang on, let me play this. Let me play this for you again because this guy's great.
For too long,
look at him.
One ally, the United States, carried
look at this guy. The guy from Greece is sitting there. He looks like Mr. Bean. He's so dejected. He's sitting there with his little flag going, I don't want to pay all the, what's Greek? Is it lira? I don't even remember. But the Greeks are like, this is horrible. We're not, and the Greeks are like, Russia's nowhere near us. Why we got to pay 5% of our GDP? But that's the way it is because Donald Trump is like, I'm not footing the bill anymore. You guys are in the direct, you're all bordering Russia. You got everybody in NATO borders Russia except the United States of America and Greece. And so, and technically Italy, but like, the European continent. And so Donald Trump's like, I'm not paying for it. You're using the money. And I know, and this is what happens. They say, we need to defend ourselves. Give us money. NATO needs money. And we would write them a check. They would build structures. They would not weapons, defense. They would build roads. They'd say, we need stronger roads. We need more roads because if there's war with Russia, we need the roads. We're going to have tanks on the roads. You know what tanks do to roads? We're going to make sure these are the best roads possible. We need more airports. You know why? Because we're going to have to fly planes around and stuff. If there's airplanes flying around bombing Russia, we're going to need more airports. Well, in the meantime, they're just using those roads and airports for their own stuff. And we're paying for it. And Donald Trump says, we see what you're doing. You're claiming you're defending yourself from Russia, but you're really just boosting your own infrastructure and you're doing it with our money. No more. Ow. That's the second. I'm going to break my hand before. I got to get I used to have a doll. So do you remember somebody got me like a Nancy Pelosi doll? It was like a smack doll or something. And anytime I wanted to hit something, I could just smack the doll instead. I'm going to do that. Or you know what else I'm going to do? Maybe I'm going to just get a sound effect of somebody slamming their fist on the desk. And that way I can just, hit it like I do one of my sound effects. But it would be like a fist. And that way I wouldn't break my, anyway, back to where I was. So this is what's happening. And the guy at NATO loves Donald Trump, called him Dear Donald. Said President Trump, Dear Donald. You know what else he called him? He called him Daddy. Kid you not. I kid you not. Mark Rutte, I think is how it's pronounced. I got to work on hang on. Now I'm curious. Now I'm actually curious. Google, how do you pronounce Mark Rutte? All right, ready? Here we go. Let me see. Here it is.
Mark Rutte.
Rutte. Oh, that was not nearly as difficult.
In my series,
Mark Rutte. I don't know who that guy is. Let's try it again.
Mark Rutte.
Okay, Mark Rutte is his name. Mark Rutte is the Secretary General of NATO. He called President Donald Trump Dear Donald, and then later on, he called him Daddy. Who's your daddy, Mark Rutte? It's Donald Trump.
I mean, we may do papers on it, Marco. Maybe we're going to do papers. I don't even know if you need them. They're not going to be fighting each other. They've had it. They've had a big fight, like two kids in a schoolyard. They fight like hell. You can't stop them. Let them fight for about 2-3 minutes. Then it's easy to stop them.
And then Daddy has to sometimes use strong language.
You have to use strong language. Every once in a while, you have to use a certain word.
I think we have to join the others.
Then Daddy. He's like, then Daddy. Did you hear him? He's like, look, sometimes you got to let them fight, and sometimes they're fighting, and sometimes it gets out of control. And Mark Rutte is like, and then Daddy comes in and uses strong language. Daddy. And it was like, it was a little weird.
I mean, we may do papers on it, Marco. Maybe we're going to do papers. I don't even know if you need them. They're not going to be fighting each other. They've had it. They've had a big fight, like two kids in a schoolyard. They fight like hell. You can't stop them. Let them fight for about 2-3 minutes. Then it's easy to stop them.
And then Daddy has to sometimes use strong language.
Then like he even makes the fist with it too. Like
Daddy has to sometimes use strong language.
Daddy, he's so Daddy has to use strong. He loves calling Trump Dear Donald, Daddy, use that strong. I love when you use that strong language, Daddy. It's so weird. This guy's in charge of NATO for crying out loud. And he's like, oh, Daddy. He's using dear Donald, Daddy. Anyway, the press had this was crazy. So later on, there was a press conference because with Donald Trump, there's always a press conference, and all this foreign press is there, and they're all talking to Donald Trump, and they're asking him all these questions, and they brought this up, and they asked some reporter asked Donald Trump about Mark Rutte calling him Daddy, and standing right behind Donald Trump is Marco Rubio, and he completely loses it. Can't contain himself, is just beside himself at this question. You know how like you get the giggles real bad? I mean, Marco Rubio, he's just a guy. He's just like the rest of us. You know, he's a dude. He's got a sense of humor. He's standing there behind the president, behind the most powerful person, not only in the world, but maybe in the history of the world. Donald Trump is standing there and he's getting questions from the press. And one of these women asks him about when the Secretary of NATO called him Daddy, and Marco Rubio gets the giggles and just can't help. Listen to this.
From Sky News. Mark Rutte, the NATO chief, who is your friend, he called you Daddy earlier. Do you regard your NATO allies as kind of children?
No, he likes me. I think he likes me. If he doesn't, I'll let you know. I'll come back and I'll hit him hard, okay?
Marco Rubio, but she asks him, do you consider your NATO allies your children? And Marco Rubio not only laughs, like doubles over with laughter.
I think he likes me. If he doesn't, I'll let you know. I'll come back and I'll hit him hard, okay? No? He did it very affectionate. Daddy, you're my daddy.
Do you regard your NATO allies, though, as kind of like children, and they're obviously listening to you and they're spending more, and you're obviously appreciative of that, but do you hope that actually they're going to be able to defend themselves, defend Europe on their own without...
I think they need help a little bit at the beginning. And
I mean, I can't believe this is... This is the world stage. 32 of the wealthiest, most powerful, most well-armed countries in the entire world, pretty much all of Europe. I mean, I would say the majority, except for Ukraine. Sorry, Zelensky. Pretty much all of Europe. And they're talking about how the head of this organization is calling President Donald Trump Daddy. And the Secretary of State is laughing about it in the background.
Regard your NATO allies, though, as kind of like children, and they're obviously listening to you and they're spending more, and you're obviously appreciative of that. But do you hope that actually they're going to be able to defend themselves, defend Europe on their...
My daddy.
Where's the daddy part?
Daddy, you're my daddy.
I mean, that's another one for the isolation. I need somebody to just isolate these for me, like live on the air, so that I can just start playing them over and over.
Daddy, you're my daddy.
I mean, and Marco Rubio's reaction is, Marco Rubio is all of us. Marco Rubio, and I understand that Marco Rubio, he is, I don't know what, okay, I'm from Florida, right? So I have an appreciation for Marco Rubio. He was a very good senator, but Marco Rubio, you have to understand something. Marco Rubio was in the state Senate. He was in state government. He got elected to the Senate. He became a senator. He decided in 2016 to run for president. Okay, very important. Donald Trump in 2016, also running for president. Ted Cruz running for president. Who else was there? Jeb Bush, also from Florida, was running for president. And Marco Rubio's campaign did not do well. He did better than Jeb Bush, I'd like to point out, but he did not do well. And when the Florida primary rolled around, Marco Rubio lost. He lost his own state to President Donald Trump. This was before, keep in mind, Donald Trump was still in New York. Donald Trump had not moved his residency to Mar-a-Lago. He had not upended and uprooted his entire existence and said, I'm moving to Mar-a-Lago. I'm going to be a Florida resident. New York is horrible now. And with their new mayor, I mean, it's even worse. But this was way before that. And Marco Rubio lost to Donald Trump, who basically was a foreign citizen. He was not a Floridian at the time. He had property here. He was not a resident. And when you lose your own state in a presidential primary, you pretty much have to pack it in. And you have to realize you're not going to win the general. And that's what Marco Rubio did. God love the guy. He realized, I'm not going to win the general election. I lost to Donald Trump. I'm leaving. And the other thing he did, which I think is admirable, is he said the people of Florida, the state that I represent as a senator, voted for Donald Trump. So you know what I'm going to do as an elected representative of the state of Florida? I'm going to stab all the people that voted for me in the back, go against all the people that voted for me, try to convince them that what they think is wrong, like Liz Cheney did? No, that's what Liz Cheney did. Liz Cheney got elected by the people of Wyoming to be the representative in Congress. The people in Wyoming overwhelmingly elected President Donald Trump. And then when it came impeachment time, instead of representing the people of Wyoming, Liz Cheney said, no, people of Wyoming who elected me, you're wrong about Donald Trump, who you also elected overwhelmingly. You're wrong and I'm right, so I'm going to vote to impeach him. And what did the people in Wisconsin do? They said, see ya, wouldn't want to be ya. And now Liz Cheney is, I don't know where she is these days. First of all, don't care. Second of all, don't know. But Marco Rubio didn't do that. He realized that as the elected representative of the state of Florida, and that the people of the state of Florida choosing Donald Trump to represent them in the primary, he decided or realized it's his job to support the people of Florida in their choices. And he supported Donald Trump. And he helped Donald Trump get elected. And he went back to the Senate and he became a strong ally of Donald Trump. And he became a strong MAGA conservative. And he became a great representative of the state of Florida. And then what happened when Donald Trump came back to power? He became the Secretary of State. And I got to tell you, dude's getting an A in my book. He's getting an A. Hopefully he keeps it. It's a tough job. It's a dirty job. It's a job that not everybody can do, but Marco Rubio is out there doing it. And Pete Hegseth, Secretary of War, also doing a fantastic job. There were a couple of other clips from this press conference. It was mostly just Donald Trump and everybody slamming the fake news, because that's really what the big story is, right? Donald Trump is saying, look, it's all just a fabricated story. What they're talking, and like I said, there's so many clips. I have to play this. So also at the NATO summit was President Volodymyr Zelensky. Now, keep in mind, Ukraine, not a member of NATO, not a NATO nation, wants to be a member of NATO, but can never be a member of NATO while he's battling Vladimir Putin, because you all know about NATO. If one person is in a war, we're all in a war. If one person is being attacked, we're all being attacked. So because Ukraine and Russia are in a war, bringing Ukraine into the relationship brings all their baggage. Boom, all of a sudden, all 32 member nations, I guess 33 if Ukraine were joining, would be in a war with Russia. And that would literally be World War III. I guess it would be World War IV, right? Because World War III was the 12-day escapade between Israel and Iran, which Donald Trump ended in about 22 minutes on Saturday night. Is that the one? So World War IV now is it would be World War IV instantly. So Volodymyr Zelensky, Ukraine, they're not going to be in NATO, but he was there anyway. And one of the reporters asked about President Donald Trump's meeting with Volodymyr Zelensky.
I think you're just meeting with President Zelensky. Did you discuss any ceasefire in this Russo-Ukrainian?
No. I wanted to know how he's doing. He was very nice, actually. We had little rough times sometimes. He was couldn't have been nicer. I think he'd like to see an end to this. I do. I think what I took from the meeting couldn't have been nicer, actually. But I took from the meeting that he'd like to see it end. I think it's a great time to end it. I'm going to speak to Vladimir Putin and see if we can get it ended. But look, these are brave people. They're fighting these wars all over the place. Last week they had, I guess, close to 7,000 young soldiers, Russian and Ukrainian soldiers were killed. 7,000 in 1 week. It's crazy. It's crazy. So I'll be speaking to Putin. No, I had a good meeting with Zelensky. And I had a lot of good meetings. We had a lot of good meetings with a lot of people, a lot of great leaders. But he's fighting a brave battle. It's a tough battle.
Yeah, there was also this was kind of tough. And I'll tell you about. By the way, what happened in Iran over the weekend with President Donald Trump, Iran and Israel, and the ceasefire agreement proves something we've all known for a very long time about Volodymyr Zelensky. But before we get to that, there was this woman there, a reporter. and she asked a question because her husband, I believe, is fighting in Ukraine. And it was a really interesting back and forth between her and President Donald Trump.
I'm from Ukraine. So my question to you is whether or not the U.S. is ready to sell anti-air missile systems Patriot to Ukraine. We know that Russia has been pounding Ukraine really heavily right now.
Are you living yourself now in Ukraine?
My husband is there.
Wow.
And
I can see you very, it's amazing.
And me with the kids, I'm in Warsaw actually, because he wanted me to be.
Is your husband a soldier? No?
He's
there now?
Yeah.
Wow. That's rough stuff, right? That's tough. And you're living here?
In Warsaw.
And you're a reporter?
I am.
Good. So let me just tell you, they do want to have the missiles, okay, as they call them, the Patriots. And we're going to see if we can make some available. They're very hard to get. We need them too. We were supplying them to Israel, and they're very effective, 100% effective. Hard to believe how effective. And they do want that more than any other thing, as you probably know. That's a very good question, and I wish you a lot of luck. I mean, I can see it's very upsetting to you. So, say hello to your husband.
Yeah, say hello to your husband. That's very nice. But look, I mean, here's the thing. Donald Trump, okay? And I'm not saying Russia and Ukraine, this is not a new war. Keep in mind, every war that's being fought or ended or attempted that Donald Trump is attempting to end, these are not new wars. The war with Russia and Ukraine, they'll tell you, oh, it's the third year of the Russia-Ukraine war. It ain't the third year. It's the third gosh darn century of this war. Ukraine and Russia have been going back and forth for centuries. Is it Ukraine? Is it Russia? Is it part of the Soviet Union? Is it Ukraine again? Is it the Ukraine? Is it whatever it is? Is it these territories in Ukraine belong to Russia and Crimea or what? It's a constant battle. Donald Trump is not stopping a 3-year-old war. He's stopping a 300-year-old war. Same thing with the Middle East. That's even longer. Do you know how long they've been fighting in the Middle East over Israel? I mean, not just since Israel was founded after World War II. No, for thousands of years. Before it was Israel, they were all just killing each other just because your God was better than my God, and I don't like you, and you don't believe in Jesus Christ, and blah, 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 and praise Allah, whatever. They've just been killing each other there forever. And then after World War II, everyone said, let's give the Jewish people a state in their homeland of Israel and forget about it. All hell broke loose for at least, we're coming up on, 100 years almost, 90 years almost. That's not a new war either. Donald Trump managed to end it, though, by the way. The Abraham Accords, the ceasefire between Iran and Israel, these are monumental things that Donald Trump has done. The reason Donald Trump was able to do them is because he was able to convince the weaker party. This is very important when you're talking about Ukraine. President Donald Trump was successful with Israel and Iran because he was able to convince the weaker party that it was in their best interest to come to the table and negotiate. He was able to go to the weaker party and say, it's in your best interest if you want the war to end, if you want the fighting to end, if you want the killing to end, if you would like to go back to the way it was, if you would like to live your life as a peacemaking president and not a wartime leader, then it's in your best interest to come to the table and make a deal. And in that battle in the Middle East, Iran, compared to Israel, was almost they pretty much were the weaker party. They didn't have quite the arsenal that Israel had. But when Donald Trump dropped 6 bunker buster bombs on them, they clearly became the weakest party, and they immediately came to the table. They said, okay, Israel wiped out all of our surface-to-air missiles. Israel wiped out most of our Air Force. Israel's pummeling us with bombs and missiles and whatever. And the United States just destroyed in 20 minutes' time our decades-long quest to acquire and procure nuclear weapons. We are the weaker party in that we are getting our butts handed to us. Let's go to the table and come up with a deal. And they came up with a ceasefire. Ukraine has been the weaker party since this war started. They've got the weaker leader. They've got the weaker army. They are facing a behemoth, a Goliath, a giant. And nothing Donald Trump has been able to do or say to Vladimir Zelensky has convinced that guy that they are the weaker party or that by being the weaker party, it's his job to end the war. Zelensky doesn't want the war to end. Before Zelensky went to war, he was the clown president who was a comedian on a TV show and somehow got elected and then got embroiled in Donald Trump's first impeachment because of something Donald Trump said on the phone about Joe Biden one time. And oh yeah, wasn't Ukraine also the corrupt, regime that took $1 billion from the United States and fired the investigator investigating Burisma because Joe Biden asked them to? I said, it's 6 o'clock now, and by 6, I'm leaving at 6 o'clock tomorrow. That son of a bitch isn't fired. You're not getting the money. Well, some bitch was fired. Whatever he said. I mean, he said something along those lines.
They don't know what the fuck they're doing.
Yeah, something like that. Anyway, so that's where we are. But Zelensky doesn't want to do that. He wants to be the guy in fatigues who flies around the world, who gets a seat at the NATO table, who gets to go to Congress and kiss Nancy Pelosi on the cheek while she slurs out Slava Ukraine. He gets to be at the Academy Awards and the Grammys. He gets to be in Great Britain where he gets big checks for millions and millions of dollars. He gets to meet the King of England, King Charles. He gets to be on Vogue magazine covers. He gets to summer in Spain. His wife gets a $500,000 automobile. And he gets to become a household name. If the war's over, all that goes away. And he's back to being the clown prince of Ukraine. And he doesn't want any of that. Donald Trump has tried to convince Vladimir Zelensky that he needs to go to the table. Donald Trump has tried to convince Vladimir Zelensky that he's not going to win this war. He brought him to the White House. He tried to make a deal. He offered him our help with the rare earth minerals. He offered him all kinds of economic outcomes, which would protect him from the Soviet Union, from Russia, rather, with Vladimir Putin. He said, look, you're not going to be in NATO, but there's other ways to keep your country safe. And Vladimir Zelensky thumbed his nose at Donald Trump, got his butt thrown out of the White House. Only 2 people have been thrown out of the White House this year, Vladimir Zelensky and Joe Biden. And it was really embarrassing for both of them. Also, I don't think cognitively either of them are all there. But that's why this war in Ukraine is not ending. And Donald Trump knows it. He's like, look, they want Patriot missiles. I could give them Patriot missiles. Donald Trump doesn't want to give them Patriot missiles. He doesn't want to keep arming. That's how these never-ending wars never end. In the old days, the United States used their power and their assets and their weapons defending or funding the weaker party against the stronger party to a certain extent. Not enough for them to actually win the war, but not enough for them to think that they should actually quit the war. They weren't winning the war, but they weren't losing bad enough where they thought they didn't have a chance. And that's how these never-ending wars continue. That's why they were never-ending. Donald Trump said, we're not going to do that. What he did with Iran and Israel was, he said, look, Iran, all they have is this nuclear stuff. We're going to get rid of it, and then they're going to be forced to come to an agreement. And it worked great. Now, he's not going to bomb Ukraine. I mean, we're not going to do that. But he's been trying every which way he can to get Zelensky to say, this war's got to end, and he's not doing it. You know where there should be regime change? Ukraine. There should be 100%. There should be regime change in Ukraine. Listen, before we get, I got to say that we've got some so much stuff, by the way. I've been ranting about this NATO stuff for like an hour. I know, I get it. It's fun. I'm enjoying it. I hope you're enjoying it too. If you are, send me a super chat. Send me a Rumble rant. If you're enjoying this, if you've even liked 1 second of this, now's a great time to send a Rumble rant. Now's a great time to send a super chat on YouTube, because all your Rumble rants, all your super chats, any money you toss at me, it goes right back into the show. I'm not like one of those strippers riding the pole. That money, she takes all that money and it goes right to, I don't even know what she's made, probably kids' school or whatever, it depends on what she's into. But this goes right back into the show so we can make the show bigger and better and badder and stronger and more entertaining and more informative and all that stuff. For example, we got a Rumble rant moments ago from Pounder19R, who wrote, hey, Mark. I don't know why I can't see it in the middle of the screen. Hey, Mark, could you do this song? Hey, Joe, where are you going with that auto pen in your hand? Oh, that's funny. That's funny. I like that. Although technically, I guess Joe wasn't the one with the auto pen in his hand. It was someone else. It was like Donna Brazil or something like that. But I like that. And Pounder19R, thank you so much for the generous Rumble rant. We definitely do. We definitely do appreciate that, as we appreciate all of our Rumble ranters. It's very easy to give a Rumble rant. There's a little button right there on Rumble, and same thing on YouTube. You can give us a little, and also we'll shout you out. Whatever message you put in there. I mean, if you're promoting like your own business or your babysitting services or any of that, whatever you got, I'll read your message. So have at it. It's tons of fun, and like I said, it helps the show along the way. All right, let's get to the big, beautiful bill, shall we? Because there was an interesting interview I saw with, well, there's a couple things going on. The big, beautiful bill, the deadline that President Donald Trump put in, and it's not a firm deadline, but he said, I would like this done by July 4th. Okay. Well, July 4th is not tomorrow, but it is a week. I mean, it's not tomorrow. It's not Friday, but it's a week from Friday. So that gives you, let's see, 7, 8, like 9 days. Fewer than 10 days before Donald Trump's imposed deadline for the great big beautiful bill to clear the Senate, go back to the House of Representatives and hit his desk before the July 4th weekend so that it can be signed and everything that he's promised in his agenda can start being put into action. That's what he wants. And Scott Bessent, the Treasury Secretary, has been doing his darndest. He went to the Senate yesterday for lunch. That's how much he wants. He wants this thing passed so bad, he went and had lunch with senators.
Had a very successful lunch meeting with the senators. I think that we are on track for hopefully for a vote this Friday for July 4th for the tax bill. President is doing peace deals, tax deals, trade deals, so he's done a peace deal. I think we'd have the tax deal done by July 4th. And then we can finish with the trade deals. Okay, so the tax deal will be done by July 4th. Then we can go back to the trade deals. We've kind of put the trade deals on hold because we want to get this one big, beautiful bill in. And then, of course, we had to bomb Iran in the meantime. So that took a couple days off of that. But he goes, look, I think we're gonna be able to do that. And he says this is a great bill. And along with Donald Trump's economic policy, it's going to do great things for America.
How are you convincing conservative members that this is not going to have a negative impact on the deficit?
I think it's through growth, and we are constraining spending and bringing that down. So the trajectory of the deficit to GDP will change.
So by by promoting growth, which is a big deal, we haven't done that in a while. Joe Biden wasn't out there promoting growth. Joe Biden was not promoting growth. In fact, he was doing, what's the opposite of promoting growth? I guess killing it, stabbing it in the throat, and watching it bleed to death. That's what he was doing with it, running over it with an electric vehicle repeatedly until it was just a pulping, bleeding mess on the ground. That's what Joe Biden did with growth. But Donald Trump is promoting growth, which is a great thing to do, especially if you want to pay down your deficit and make your country rich again. But there's senators, Republicans, who are not yet convinced that the spending in the great big beautiful bill, or the one big beautiful bill, will be offset by the savings, by the reductions, and by the increased growth that Donald Trump is promoting. And Tommy Tuberville from Alabama is not only letting the cat out of the bag, but he is naming names.
Do you think that the Senate will get that legislation together and back over to the House for final approval in the coming days or weeks?
You know, I got my doubts, and I've told President Trump this. I think it will pass. I don't know whether, especially this week, we've got, of course, Rand Paul's not going to vote for it because it's got a $5 trillion debt limit, and he never votes for one of those. So that's 52. We've got to have at least 50. And then you got Ron Johnson, who I don't think they've listened to him enough. I think he's got a great plan. Then you have Mike Lee. And then you have Josh Hawley, who is really upset about the Medicaid cuts. And so you've got some ifs, ands, and buts there. John Thune told us today, the leader of the Senate said, we're staying until we pass it. So get ready to spend 4th of July here. That could happen. But as you well know, sometimes people start smelling those jet fumes, ready to go home, like they do around Christmas time, and we'll get it passed. But Matt, I'm going to be honest with you. Right now, I really don't know whether it's going to pass.
He's right, by the way, about the jet fumes. When those private jets start fueling up, when those private jets start fueling up, what happens is those people are like, we got to get out of here. What do you need me to vote on? We got to get out of here. Fine. that's fine. I'll just vote however you want me to vote because I don't want to spend the 4th of July in Washington, D.C., which, by the way, is there a better place to spend the 4th of July? I don't know, maybe like Philadelphia, Yorktown, who knows? But Ron, it's an interesting list he made. And this is something I like about Tommy Tuberville. And this, by the way, is how I will be when I go to Congress. My superpower, I have a couple superpowers, okay? And this isn't about me, but I'm just letting you know. Because people say, Mark, hey, why should you be our Congressman? I'll tell you why. Because A, I'm very loud, and B, I don't really care what people think about me. I'm going to tell you this. I worked as a conservative radio host at a liberal radio station for 7 years. I went in every single day and talked about President Donald Trump and conservatism and how bad the Democrats were and how idiotic the liberals were and how damaging and disgusting DEI was. Meanwhile, the people I worked for were liberals. They were lunatics on the left. They hated Donald Trump. They hated conservatives and they loved DEI. We would get DEI emails almost every week. We're having a DE&I celebration in the break room. We're having a DE&I party. Don't forget your DE&I initiatives. Here's an email with some DE&I crap because you haven't gotten one in 6 days. And nobody liked me, and I didn't care. And I plan to do the exact same thing when I go to Congress. In fact, I think I'm infinitely well qualified for that very reason. And unlike our current representative, John Rutherford, who doesn't talk to anybody, doesn't do town halls, doesn't do interviews, never lets you know what he's actually doing because he doesn't want you to know what he's doing because what he's doing is not what he actually got sent there to do by the people who sent him there to do it. So he keeps quiet. And the quiet ones are the ones you got to watch. You don't have to worry about Marjorie Taylor Greene being up to shenanigans because she's out there telling you what she's doing every single day and she's calling out other people. And so is Tommy Tuberville, and I like that. He's calling out Rand Paul. Rand Paul isn't going to vote for this bill because it increases the debt ceiling $5 trillion. That checks out. I don't think counting on Rand Paul to vote in the Senate for this is like counting on Thomas Massie to vote for it in the House of Representatives. So as he pointed out, you're right down to 52. Well, then there's Ron Johnson. And he said, I think Ron Johnson has a really good plan, but guess what? Nobody's listening to him. And you know what senators don't like? When nobody listens to them. Senators don't like it when they say, hey, I know you guys are dead set on this bill, but let me show you something that's better. And then they go, we just pass it. He's like, well, then I'm not going to vote for it. Ron Johnson, hold on, let me pull this over a little bit so we can actually read it. Ron Johnson, they realize I'm serious. Inside Ron Johnson's mega bill talks with the White House. Senator Ron Johnson said Wednesday he's not ready to support Donald Trump's signature domestic policy bill, but the Wisconsin Republican said that the White House, including the president himself, is helping to move him closer to yes. Johnson shared details of Monday's one-on-one meeting with Trump in an exclusive interview where he credited the administration for working with him on a push to set up a budget review panel that would force Congress to return to the issue of deficit reduction even after the big, beautiful bill is passed. He said he remains in discussions about getting the concept included in the mega bill ahead of its floor consideration, which could begin as soon as Friday. Besides his meeting with Trump, Johnson said he also spoke this week with Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent. I realize we can't do this in one fell swoop. I think the main sticking point is, what's the forcing mechanism to actually realize those savings, to enact them? The panel, he said, would be made up of members of the House, Senate, and the Office of Management and Budget. Part of the ongoing discussions are about how it gets funded and if executive orders are needed to back it up. So far, they haven't landed on a forcing mechanism, bulletproof enough to convince Johnson he will get another bite at the apple. GOP leaders, administration officials, and even Senate Budget Chair Lindsey Graham have said they intend to pursue another party line reconciliation bill to sweep up any orphaned policy priorities, which would give fiscal hawks like Johnson another chance to seek funding cuts. But Johnson is warning that verbal commitments won't be enough to sway him. He said he floated a shorter debt ceiling hike to force Congress back to the table, but the White House has shot that down. I've got everybody's attention, Johnson said, adding that it's coming down to crunch time. They realize I'm serious, so they need to get serious. And Ron Johnson isn't wrong that if you are promising spending cuts, and if you are saying that there will be spending cuts, and if you are demanding spending cuts, you probably need to have some kind of mechanism in place to make sure that those spending cuts actually happen, to force those spending cuts. And that is something that he has not yet seen. I think of all the people holding up the bill, I think that he's probably the most likely to get what he wants in order to become a yes. Rand Paul is not going to get what he wants in order to become a yes, but he may just become a yes under public pressure. He may just become a yes because he realizes he's on the losing side of this, and there's some good things in the bill. In fact, he's already said, Rand Paul, the only thing keeping him from voting for the one big beautiful bill is the $5 trillion debt ceiling increase. He's not convinced. He's not convinced at all that the reports from the White House and Kevin Hassett, the National Economic Council, or the chief of the National Economic Council, he's not convinced that those reports are valid, as opposed to the Congressional Budget Office that said this is going to skyrocket the deficit. I'm going to be honest with you. Listening to the Congressional Budget Office, I believe, is kind of like listening to CNN.
CNN is scum.
Yeah, or MSDNC.
MSDNC is scum.
They're also scum. Or the New York Times.
The New York Times is scum.
They're all just scum. The Congressional Budget Office is a partisan group of Democrats who don't want Donald Trump's initiatives to go through. So what are they going to do? They're going to tell you that Donald Trump's initiatives are not going to do what Donald Trump says they're going to do. They're going to do the opposite. And we're not going to save money. We're not going to see a better economy. We're going to see exploding spending, and the deficit's going to just be monumental. It's going to go up higher than Elon Musk's Mars-bound rocket. That's what they're telling you because they want Donald Trump to fail. But just remember, there's two sides to every story. And Donald Trump has had everybody out there telling his side of the story, which is that this is a great bill.
How are you convincing conservative members that this is not going to have a negative impact on the deficit?
I think it's through growth, and we are constraining spending and bringing that down. So the trajectory of the deficit to GDP will change.
Yeah, it's going to change. It's going to change 100%. It's going to change. Or else, you know what? And here's the other thing, too. I think this strike on Iran also helps these leaders in the Senate know that if they don't get on board, like, for example, if Rand Paul doesn't get on board with this, then Donald Trump's just going to, he's going to nuke Kentucky. I'm just kidding. Donald Trump's going to be like, I'm sure there's some nuclear facilities somewhere in Kentucky. We could just take out one or two. He's not going to nuke. He's not going to nuke Kentucky. Oh, although, did you hear this hilarious story? This is a great story. This is one of the things I love about not just Donald Trump, but J.D. Vance. And J.D. Vance told this story. I forget where he was. I've heard this story before too, but he told it again. And it's really, really great. He told this story about when Donald Trump was, when they were first in the White House. Listen, this is hilarious. Listen to this. I'm not even going to tell this. I'll just let J.D. Vance tell it.
The rest is history. So that's the first story. The second story that I'll tell you is we've probably been in the Oval Office for all of 10 days. And I'm sitting there, and we have a phone call with a foreign leader. I won't mention who. And it's a tough phone call. There are some tough issues that we have to work through with this foreign leader. And he asked me to come sit behind him at the Resolute desk so that if I need to say anything, I can just speak directly into the speakerphone. And it's early in the administration, so there's not a whole lot in the Oval Office yet. And there's this sort of wooden box with a red button sitting on the Resolute desk. And I think to myself, that's probably not a button that you want to press, right? So we're talking to this foreign leader, and the president looks over at me, puts the foreign leader on mute, and says, "This is not going very well," and he presses the red button. and my eyes get really big, and I'm like, "Mr. President, what just happened?" And he looks at me and he goes, "Nuclear, nuclear." And 2 minutes later, a guy walks in with a Diet Coke, and he looks back at me and he says, "It wasn't nuclear, it's just the Diet Coke button." And that's...
I mean, that's a great reason to have a big red button, or a box with a big red button on your desk, isn't it? That's a great... Also, 2 minutes? Donald Trump hit a button for a Diet Coke. He hit the Diet Coke button. It took 2 minutes for whoever the White House is in charge of bringing him a Diet Coke. 2 minutes? Oh, I don't know about that. I think they need to figure out a way to condense the time frame from button hitting to Coke delivering. 2 minutes, I feel, you go to the vending machine and you hit the button, it drops instantly within seconds. Donald Trump's got to wait 2 minutes for a die. That's a travesty. Also, there's another. If you thought that made you laugh, just wait. Rosie O'Donnell, expatriate, who fled the United States. I forget where she lives now. Does she live in Ireland? I think she lives in Ireland. She took like one of her kids. She left her other kids. She took the one kid, I guess, that she likes the best, went to Ireland because she was afraid that Donald Trump was going to like put them all in prison or deport them or force them to bathe. I don't know what it was. But Rosie O'Donnell was on with Chris Cuomo, not the one who lost the race in New York yesterday to a Islamic socialist. No, Chris Cuomo, who got fired from CNN for covering up the story of his brother who lost the race to an Islamic socialist, sexually harassing people. Anyway, she was on his show and she was talking about why she self-deported to Ireland when Donald Trump won. And I don't know if this was, I thought this was like a comedy routine for a minute.
During his first go round, it was very difficult.
By the way, first of all, why is she so close to the camera? This is a woman who has Emmy Awards. She's been on television. She's been in movies. Why is her face, like, look at her nose. Look at where she places the camera. During his first go round. She's got the camera underneath her nose and she's right up close to it. And we're forced to look up her nostrils with her. And she's clearly been drinking because that is a gin blossom if I've ever seen one. I mean, she looks like W.C. Fields. But this is, and why is Chris Cuomo not telling her, could you move your camera? I mean, I'm going to be honest with you. I don't have Chris Cuomo's audience. I mean, maybe I do actually. I'd have to check. I'd have to check the numbers. But when I have a guest on, like yesterday, for example, Brigitte Gabriel, I talked to her beforehand. We checked her camera. We checked her settings. We made sure everything was fine. We have a couple of guests coming up in the next couple of days. We're going to do the same thing. Whenever I go on Newsmax, which, by the way, I'll be on Newsmax Friday morning if you wake up early for Wake Up America, 6:30 and 7 a.m. with Mark and Charla. Should be a lot of fun. But I call in early, and the guy in Newsmax is like, okay, can you turn your lights down? Okay, great. Your microphone's good. Can you lower your chair? I always have to lower my chair. Like when I'm on Newsmax, I'm here because of the framing, but then I have to put it back up here for when I do my show. But we check these things. Chris Cuomo and News Nation apparently don't, because we're looking up Rosie O'Donnell's nostrils while she's telling us about why she fled the United States. Oh, let me hear it. We'll just play from the beginning.
During his first go round, it was very difficult, and I got myself into some bad places. I was very, very depressed. I was overeating. I was over drinking. I was so depressed, Chris. I can't, it hurt my heart that America believed the lies about him. And then it broke my heart to be in a business that creates and sells those lies for profit. It was very heavy, to tell you the truth.
Is she talking about her weight again? That's horrible. I'm not making jokes about her. Also, I don't believe for 1 second that she started overeating and over drinking when Donald Trump became president. Okay, I saw the Flintstones. All right, I saw her as Betty Rubble. The overeating and the over drinking did not start in 2016. Let's be honest. Also, I didn't understand what she was talking about. She said it hurt my heart that they believed the lies about him. Isn't that what she said? I don't understand. I got to listen to that one more time because that didn't make any sense.
During his first go round, it was very difficult, and I got myself into some bad places. I was very, very depressed. I was overeating. I was over drinking. I was so depressed, Chris. I can't, it hurt my heart that America believed the lies about him.
Okay, I'm not sure what she means. It hurt my heart that America believed the lies about him. What lies? I thought they were the ones telling lies. I mean, don't forget, she was on The View. She lied about Donald Trump just like the rest of them did. The news, CNN lied about Donald Trump. Don't forget, CNN is scum. They lied. What does it mean that hurt my heart that they lied about Donald Trump and that America believed the lies? Is she admitting that they were lying about Donald Trump? No one was lying in a positive way. When Donald Trump came down that escalator, Hollywood abandoned him. The entertainment industry abandoned him. Nobody in her field, what was she talking about?
It broke my heart to be in a business that creates and sells those lies for profit. It was very heavy, to tell you the truth.
I mean, so I'm confused. Is she admitting that ABC News and CNN and the rest of these places that are all scum?
CNN is scum.
Is she admitting that they lied about Donald Trump and that she didn't want to be part of this industry that was selling lies for profit? Is that what she's trying to say? Is she having like a come to Jesus? It is amazing. Or is she drunk again and she just doesn't understand what she's saying? I mean, I was trying to figure it out. Rosie O'Donnell, first of all, yes, she does not look like she's in the best shape. But Rosie O'Donnell, I'm trying to find anyone on X who can explain it to me. I think what she's saying is that people in her industry were lying about Donald Trump and selling it for profit. And she didn't like that. And so she started drinking and overeating and getting depressed. And that's when she decided to leave. I don't know. It's weird. I'm not really sure what's going on there. Speaking of Chris Cuomo, his brother, and this is just, I don't even understand this either. Chris Cuomo, his brother, Andrew Cuomo, who, yes, was a disgraced sexual predator who had a scandal after scandal while he was governor of New York. He had the sex scandal. He had the sexual, what is it? What do you call it? Harassment scandal. He had the whole scandal with all the old people that died during COVID because he shoved them all into the nursing homes, which was not the right thing to do. He was just not a good guy. He had sold a book and he had to give back like all of the advance, all this crazy stuff. So Chris Cuomo, we're not praising Chris Cuomo, but I will say this. In this race yesterday, with Chris Cuomo and what's his name? Zoran Mamdani or whatever it is. This guy, I have to tell you, just the things that he's tweeted, that he's written on Twitter, it made me pray yesterday for Andrew Cuomo. I was rooting for Andrew Cuomo to win this race. He did not. And it is ranked choice voting. So, there's still a chance, whatever. But this Zoran Mamdani guy is just scary that he is a socialist. He is a lover of Hamas. He does not approve of the state of Israel. And he is now the front runner to become the next mayor of the city of New York, which is the largest city in the country. I mean, it is wild. I had some of the tweets pulled up, some of the things he was saying about the police. He was saying, you don't need an investigation to know that the police are racist and should be defunded. We know that. Where's his name? Mamdani. I'm trying to find these real quick before they disappear into the ether. And this is, I mean, it's just ridiculous. Look at the breakdown here. We have some of the breakdown here. Hispanic and Latino voters picked Mamdani 30%, Andrew Cuomo 50%. White or Caucasian? White or Caucasian? This is where the white guilt comes in. 35% of them picked Zoran Mamdani over Andrew Cuomo. Black or African American? Majority Cuomo. 44% chose Cuomo. Asian, 50% chose Mamdani over Cuomo. I mean, it is really wild how these things break down. And that is how a city begins to falter and fail. The first thing they do is they elect leadership that hates the United States of America. I'm still trying to find. Oh, here we go. Here's a good one. This is Zoran Mamdani on October 5th, 2020. When New York Governor Cuomo refuses to tax the rich, he's refusing to let workers enjoy the wealth they created. When he says low taxes foster a business-friendly environment, he means an environment where it's easy for bosses to steal from workers. Taxation isn't theft, capitalism is. So when you say the guy's a socialist, this is exactly what they're talking about. Now, this is weird to me for a couple reasons, because New York City is one of the richest, wealthiest cities in the entire world, and it is filled with capitalists. All those skyscrapers, they weren't built by socialists. All those big buildings, all those ritzy restaurants and stores, all those, the Empire State Building, Trump Tower, all of them, the multi-million dollar apartments, I think there's like a $400 million penthouse in New York City. None of those things were built by socialists. They were built by capitalists. And now the mayor of the city is saying that taxation isn't theft, capitalism is. That's him saying, I'm going to tax the wazoo out of New Yorkers, and we're going to stifle capitalism. And that's a surefire way to destroy a civilization. New York City is spent. Now, this, of course, was a primary, the Democrat primary, so there is still hope. This guy is not mayor yet, and the only person really that can stop him, I think, at this point is the current mayor, Eric Adams. So that's something we're going to be watching really closely coming up into November, whether or not New York can be saved. And I have to tell you, I imagine that Eric Adams is going to get a lot of friends from the Democrat Party, the party that tried to throw him in jail, the party that tried to hunt him down and end his political career, the party that tried to toss him in the trash heap, the party that said, hey, we know we're sending you. And this is the whole thing. This is how we got where we are today, too. This is all the Democrats' fault. The Democrats, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris and the deep state and all these people, they brought in all these illegal immigrants and they started sending them to all these cities. And one of them was New York City. And Eric Adams said, we'll take a couple, but we're not going to take all of them. And Joe Biden said, you're going to take as many as we give you. And so the auto pen kept sending illegal immigrants to New York. And what did they do? They had to buy out buildings and hotels. They had to take the Roosevelt Hotel and turn it into an illegal alien shelter where they got free room and board, 3 square meals a day. It was insanity. Then that wasn't enough. So they had to kick their kids out of schools and start housing these illegal immigrants in the gymnasiums, and kids couldn't get to gym class anymore. Then they had to convert parking garages into temporary homes for illegal immigrants because Joe Biden kept sending them. And Eric Adams got on the phone and said, Joe, stop it. You're killing our city. He got up at a town hall meeting and said, we cannot sustain this. These illegal immigrants, these illegal aliens that the Democrat Party is sending here are going to be the end of New York. They're going to destroy us. And instead of the Democrat Party and Joe Biden in the White House saying, you know what, you're right, we won't. We will stop. Instead of the Democrat Party saying, you know what, we see and feel your pain. And since New York is so important to the fabric of this nation, and so since New York is a Democrat stronghold in a Democrat state, and since you are a Democrat mayor, we are going to help you out. No, they said, you know what, you need to sit down and shut up or we're going to get rid of you. And they tried to get rid of him. They tried to throw him in jail. They tried to accuse him of stuff he didn't do, just like they did with Donald Trump. Donald Trump said to him, Donald Trump was at the dinner, I forget. And he said, look, I feel bad for you, Eric. I know exactly, as soon as you said no more immigrants, he goes, I knew exactly what they were going to do to you. And they did it. And they're still trying to do it. And Donald Trump said, that's just wrong. That's just wrong. But now Eric Adams, I think, is going to have a lot of friends because a lot of people are learning today who Zoran Mamdani is. And the only person that can stand in his way, the only person that can keep him from becoming the next mayor of New York is Eric Adams, the independent candidate. Curtis Slee was going to make a run for it. A couple of other people are going to make a run for it. But I really feel at this point in time, the best thing New York can do is rally around Eric Adams. Democrats, independents, Republicans, Wiccans, whoever doesn't like this guy. Any Jewish voter? I mean, come on. There's so many Jewish people in New York. I think if you got the majority of Jewish people to vote for you, you should be fine. But again, I'm not a political operative in Manhattan. Never have been. I lived in New York City, man. I went to NYU, as many of you know, and I went there. By the way, Barron Trump, shout out for making NYU cool again. I went there during the Giuliani years. I lived in New York City when Giuliani was president. I have to tell you, it was amazing. People are like, how could you live in New York City? It was great. There was no drug trucks on the street. It didn't smell like weed. There weren't people with needles sticking out of their arms. The cabs were clean. The drivers spoke English. There was no incense. It was fantastic. They didn't have any vagrants or people selling you crap when you were walking around. Tourism was bustling. They got rid of all the peep shows and all the strip clubs and all the gross stuff in Times Square. They built a Hello Kitty store, for crying out loud, and a Lego store. Broadway was safe. People were coming to shows again. It was amazing. I rode the subway, which had no graffiti on it, at 2 a.m. without a care in the world. That was New York under Rudy Giuliani. And we are nowhere, it's a 180 situation from where we were back then. So when I tell people I lived in New York, I always say under Giuliani. And they go, oh, okay, now Now I get it. Hey, listen, later tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern, this is it. This is your last chance. A lot of people have been wondering about this big event. It's going to be incredible. As you know, because you've been watching, I do not one, but 2 daily podcasts. Every morning we do the 47 daily podcast. Every evening or afternoon, rather, at 1 o'clock p.m. Eastern, we do what we're doing right now. Mark Kaye Saves the Republic. And this is what I do. This is my whole thing. As I've been able to create a media company from my own home, where I'm the boss, where I call the shots, where I produce the content, where I say what's what, where I build the audience, where I come up with offers and products and things that people I know in my audience are going to like. And I've built a business. And podcasting, in my humble opinion, is the best way to start marketing your business. If you don't have a podcast, you probably need one. If you do have a podcast and it's not performing or monetizing the way that you would like it to, I am happy to help. And tonight, at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, I am hosting a 1-hour live training called Podcast Profits Live. And I will show you how you can take the knowledge you already have, the information you already know, the stuff you've already created, and turn it into a podcast that will market your business, get you more customers, make you more money. I'll show you how to make multiple streams of income from one podcast every single day. And remember, I've got 2 of them. And this event is free. There's a link in the description of this video. You can click on the link and you can get the Zoom link so you can come and hang out and join us and watch. It is there's limited space. I don't even know. We may be, if you can still sign up, let me know. If you can't, it's because we've maxed out capacity. There's a limited amount in my Zoom room. I don't have the Premier package. But I do want to make sure that anybody who's truly interested in learning this, truly interested in marketing their business or coming up with a new and exciting way to promote whatever it is they do. And you don't have to have your own business. You can work for someone else. If you're in sales, having a podcast can boost your sales and make you and the company you work for way more money. You'll probably get a promotion or become a vice president or something cool like that. And I'm going to teach you how all that works tonight, 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Go to markk.com/podcast-profits. markk.com/podcast-profits, or click the link in the description of this video, and we will see you there at 8 o'clock tonight. Until then, or until tomorrow, thank you so much for joining me today. Please make sure you're subscribed to this channel so you can get this content whenever we publish it, which is a lot. We want to make sure you're getting our videos and our shorts and our live streams. We want to make sure you're getting every morsel, every nugget, everything that I feel you need to know to protect yourself and your future and your finances and your family from the lunatics on the left and the socialists in New York who are trying to destroy our great country, trying to burn the fabric of our great republic like it's a flag at a protest. All those people, they are a danger to us every single day. They are the enemy, and we've got to continue to battle them. We've got to battle their ideas. We've got to battle their morals or lack thereof. We've got to battle them at the ballot box, most importantly. It's one of the reasons why I'm running for Congress in 2026. But more importantly, it's the reason why I do this every single day and why I invite you to subscribe and to set the notifications and to join us every time we go live. Because that's the only way we're going to continue to grow together, continue to learn together, continue to get stronger together, and continue to fight together so that we can save the Republic. Oh, wait, before I go, I got some super chats. Oh, that Liberty lady sent me both a super chat and a Rumble rant and said, Larry Sharp would say, when offered no plan versus a bad plan, people will pick the bad plan. Cuomo had no plan. Very well said. That Liberty lady, thank you so much. And thank you so much for the Rumble rant and the super chat that you sent in. I really appreciate it. By the way, you can still send Rumble rants and super chats. We don't need to be live. Somebody sent me a super chat the other day. It was like 9 o'clock at night. And they were watching back the live and they were like, oh, I'm going to send a super chat in. I appreciate that. I can't read it live because I'm, laying in bed, but feel free. You're more than welcome to send money at any time during the day.